After a moment of shocked silence, the Bay Area emergency services seemed to register the new problem. The East Bay had already been deemed a disaster area. With the tunnel closure and the mysterious string of wildfires and explosions in the hills, sirens had been wailing across the flatlands. Emergency lights flickered everywhere on the jammed streets. Now the Coast Guard vessels joined the party, cutting across the water to reach the burning oil spills. Police and news helicopters veered towards the scene from a dozen different directions as if being pulled by a magnet. The mist would be working overtime tonight. I was tempted just to lie down on the road and go to sleep. I knew if I did that I would die, but at least there would be no more pain. Oh, Frank. And why hadn't Artemis come to help me? I wasn't mad at her. I understood all too well how gods could be. All the different reasons they might not show up when you called. Still, it hurt. Being ignored by my own sister? An indignant huff jarred me out of my thoughts. The Pegasi were glaring at me. One on the left had a blind eye, poor thing, but he shook his bridle and made a raspberry sound, as if to say, "Get over yourself, dude." The Pegasus was correct. Other people were hurting. Some of them needed my help. Tarquin was still alive. I could feel it in my zombie-infected blood. Hazel and Meg might well be fighting undead in the streets of New Rome. I wouldn't be much good to them, but I had to try. Either I could die with my friends, or they could cut off my head after I turned into a brain eater, which is what friends are for. I rose and struggled towards the Pegasi. "I'm so sorry this happened to you," I told them. "You are beautiful animals, and you deserve better." One Eye grunted as if to say, "Ya think?" "I'll free you now, if you'll let me." I fumbled with their tack and harnesses. I found an abandoned dagger on the asphalt and cut away the barbed wire and spiked cuffs that had been digging into the animal's flesh. I carefully avoided their hooves in case they decided I was worth a kick in the head. Then I started humming Dean Martin's "Ain't That a Kick in the Head," because that's just the kind of awful week I was having. "There," I said when the Pegasi were free. "I have no right to ask anything of you, but if you could see your way to giving me a ride over the hills, my friends are in danger." The other Pegasus on the right, who still had both eyes, but whose ears had been cruelly snipped, whinnied an empathetic "No!" He trotted towards the College Avenue exit, then stopped halfway and looked back at his friend. One Eye grunted and tossed his mane. I imagined his silent exchange with Short Ears went something like this. One Eye: "I'm gonna give this pathetic loser a ride. You go ahead, I'll catch up." Short Ears: "You're crazy, man. If he gives you any trouble, kick him in the head." One Eye: "You know I will." Short Ears trotted off into the night. I couldn't blame him for leaving. I hoped he would find a safe place to rest and heal. One Eye nickered at me. Well? I took one last look at Caldecott Tunnel. The interior still a maelstrom of green flames. Even without fuel, Greek fire would just keep burning and burning. And that conflagration had been started with Frank's life force. A final thermal burst of heroism that had vaporized Caligula. I didn't pretend to understand what Frank had done or why he had made that choice, but I understood he felt it was the only way. He burned brightly all nights. The last word Caligula had heard as he got blasted into tiny particles of soot was Jason. I stepped closer to the tunnel. I could barely get within 50 feet without the breath being sucked out of my lungs. "Frank!" I yelled. "Frank!" It was hopeless, I knew. There was no way Frank could have survived that. Caligula's immortal body had disintegrated instantly. Frank couldn't have lasted more than a few seconds longer, held together by sheer courage and force of will, just to be sure that he took Caligula down with him. I wished I could cry. I vaguely recalled having tear ducts once upon a time. Now, all I had was despair, and the knowledge was that as long as I wasn't dead, I had to try and help my remaining friends no matter how much I hurt. I'm so sorry, I said to the flames. The flames didn't answer. They didn't care who or what they destroyed. I fixed my gaze on the crest of the hill. Hazel, Meg, and the last of the 12th Legion were on the other side, fighting off the undead. That's where I needed to be. Okay, One Eye, I told him. I'm ready. End of chapter 37.